Some viewers may find the following video disturbing. Viewer discretion is advised.
Alright, what is up guys? So, this is Strident and I finally collabing for the first time ever. So, he ended up using this for, I think, one of his videos. I can't remember what it was called, but I think it was something that he said that he was planning on doing in the future. But anyway, we got to sit down and chat about action figures and our thoughts on, the new YouTube policy that's going to be happening next year and stuff like that. So hopefully you guys enjoy just recording this real quick so that I can get this processed and the Finn Balor review processed. So I can get one review or one video done for, earlier tomorrow. And I have the rest of the day to enjoy my birthday. So hopefully you guys enjoy this, and thank you to everyone from Strident's channel, the few that subscribe to me. Appreciate it. Thank you. I appreciate the support, and without further ado, here is Strident and I geeking out for the very first time ever.
How's everything? How you been?
Not too bad. Just doing college things and work and trying to fit my hobby in whenever I can.
Yeah, I know, right? That's the story of our lives. So I had a couple things that I think would be cool conversation pieces or cool topics. One of them was you had brought it up a while back. It was like the future of collecting. Like, this is what the hobby has become. Remember you sent me that video that had like Dog and all of them on there, kind of complaining about, not being able to make money off YouTube by selling action figures and shit like that. And it was just like, that's not really what it's about, but that seems to be what it's about for a lot of people. I figured that could be something we could talk about. You know what I mean? But the big ones big things I wanted to talk about, I have a bunch of things. And I figure, in about an hour or so, for about an hour or so, we could actually sit down and just chat about that stuff. Nothing, no heavy anything, just pretty much, just going over random shit that I guess we would normally talk about if we're just talking, but we typically don't get to talk about as like a video. You know what I mean?
Right.
So, let's see. How would you prefer to like start off? I usually just start off and introduce who I'm talking with, and then we just talk from there.
I mean, it's up to you. I don't mind. Whatever works for you.
Cool. Okay. All right. So I'll add in the introduction later. So we'll just start talking. So one of the things that I've been meaning, I guess I've wanted to chat about, and I'm trying to do this more often, is get people that I talk to online, folks that are kind of active on the channel, folks that are active on Facebook. And I don't mean like that's all you do, but just folks that we tend to talk a lot back and forth. Get them in on the video so that we can actually, hear other opinions. And you're gonna hear that creaking, cracking sound. It's not me busting ass. It's my chair.
No, that's okay. Mine creaks too, so it's all good.
Cool. But yeah, man, like I like hearing other people. I mean, obviously we've got some similar perspective, but like, you get tired hearing the same echo chambery type shit on YouTube all the time, because YouTube seems to be made up of that type of, back and forth, where it's like the same people saying the same things over and over and over and over. And it's like, can we get a different perspective out here? Can people get a chance to hear, how the regular Joes do it? You know what I mean? Because it sounds like or it seems like, on YouTube is a lot of collectors that just, this is all they do. So their whole everything kind of revolves around this. So they've got figures kind of coming in on a constant basis. You know what I mean? They don't do anything else. Their whole family is in on the whole thing, or they just leave them alone to let them do it. So it's just nothing but collecting all the time. And it's just kind of unrealistic. And I know that's kind of the spirit of YouTube, is to give people these, well, social media in general, give people these unrealistic views and expectations of the world around them. But the whole point of me even starting to do YouTube videos was to talk to people about, just talk with people about how regular people do it, and, you know, kind of just hear how other people's perspective, what other people's perspective is on collecting action figures. So I guess we could start with, as since you started collecting, what is the best thing for you, like, about collecting action figures? What keeps you doing it? Why do you enjoy it so much?
I don't know. It's just kind of a way of feeling, or bringing back nostalgia in some ways.
Yeah, yeah, that's fun.
Because when I was, or at least when I had my GI Joes, it was like 25th and Rise of Cobra and Pursuit of Cobra and stuff like that. So
Yeah, some of the best stuff.
now,
Yeah.
now that there's no GI Joe, I've mostly just been going to Marauders, which I love their stuff. I just
Oh yeah.
got my order in yesterday, so I've been working on getting that done and adding that to my team and stuff like that.
Yeah. Yeah, man, I wouldn't even be sad if Marauders carried the torch from now on. I love what they do. I mean, like, the fact that they've been able to kind of touch on a little of everything, like, you could literally make 95% of the main recognizable, like, face characters of G.I. Joe with Marauders parts. And their versions have better, more tactical looking gear that's more up to date. You know what I mean? Because it's not like the beginning of the Cold War type shit, or middle of the Cold War type gear from, like, you know, the 80s with the Contras and shit like that. Like, they're not wearing 70s and 80s military gear. They're wearing now more up to date with a slight hint of I don't want to say Hollywood, but like the sci-fi angle, you know, with your Steadicam gunner and all that stuff. Like, they're really, I don't know, they're doing exactly what Hasbro should have been doing, and it seemed like it's what they were starting to do when they were doing Pursuit of Cobra. But this is all shit everybody's already heard me say, so it's good to hear that. What about with other collections, like other stuff? Because I know one thing we talk back and forth about are like some of the multiverse stuff. We talk about the Lightning collection a lot, because they're just, I don't understand how they're killing it so hard, but they're fucking killing it. Like, not one of the figures they've released in the Lightning collection has been whack. Not one. Not a single one. Even the simplest Ranger, you know, like all the reds that they've done so far and stuff, like, they still are all dope, you know?
Right.
So,
At least for me, like as of now with Marvel Legends, it's mostly trying to do the 90s X-Men.
hell yeah. Hell yeah.
And I'm still waiting to hear back on my 3-pack still. So, and
Shit.
yeah, what was it? GameStop had uh-oh. Oh, I thought it dropped the call. I was like, uh-oh.
No,
Um,
no.
no, with because I pre-ordered it through GameStop in store, and I thought that it was going to be released the 25th, and I called them, and they said they didn't have it, and they kind of gave me the runaround, and I had to go call the GameStop by my college, and I like them a little bit better because they're a little bit more professional, and gave me the reason why they said that it wasn't in transit yet. So,
Gotcha.
um, yeah, I'm really excited to add Jean Grey up to the shelf because she just looks way better. It's like a whole upgrade from
Yeah.
the older
Crappy.
version.
Yeah. That older one was terrible. I don't understand why it was so bad either. Like it's like they didn't try. Hope looked cooler than that.
Well, I thought it was interesting how Hasbro managed to put one out before Revoltech did, because I know
Yeah,
that in your review of thought it was, I think it's Revoltech Psylocke, that you were talking about a Revoltech Rogue and a Jean Grey and a Jubilee,
uh-huh. Yeah.
and I'm surprised that we haven't seen a Jubilee yet or a Jean Grey or something like that.
I know that's all I wanted, man. Like I was saying, if I Psylocke, I had to have like a superposable figure. Like I couldn't settle for the Marvel Legends articulation, and I couldn't settle
Right.
for the Marvel Select because you know the Marvel Select will be ginormous because she's 7-inch scale, and then the which I don't even care about that because you know most of the time if I'm gonna take pictures, I could use Photoshop or you know foreshortening and all kinds of tricks to get her to look like she fits. But yeah, I just she had to be superposable, you know, like a ninja because that's what she is. So I was like, yeah, I have to get the Revoltech. Then I thought about it after seeing like Magneto and some of those other guys like Gambit and everything. I'm like, man, Jean would actually shine if she was a Revoltech figure because she's kind of like I don't want to say a clean slate, but she's kind of a simple design, and
Right.
it's all about how she's represented. Like, if you give her a thick body and then make her dynamic as far as the poses, and then give us cool effect parts, because if she has a gang of effect parts, then that's it. There's nothing more to need. You know what I'm saying? Like, that's all her powers. I mean, granted, also, again, if I'm taking pictures, I could just put the effects on there myself. Most people, though, utilize the effects. So, you know, just make her pretty posable and make her kind of thick so we can be like, okay, that's why Cyclops is, you know, that's one of the things Cyclops sees in Jean, because she is kind of a very plain character. She's always been like that. She's a simple character. It's the shit she's been through and the shit she can do that kind of like puts her, you know, up there with the most powerful, you know, characters in Marvel, the Marvel universe. But yeah, I'm surprised they didn't do it. There's a lot of stuff that I'm surprised that Hasbro has been like. Hasbro gave us a Havoc figure before both Mafex and Revoltech, you know, and Figuarts. Like I know Figuarts is doing mostly Marvel movie stuff, but you would have thought at some point, since they're better at more stylized figures, you'd think at some point they would have, you know, jumped on this comic book bandwagon. You know, maybe do that for DC. But you know, I would have thought because Marvel's all the, you know, is the hot shit right now. I would have thought that they would have jumped on that. Like I don't know what Figuarts' game is right now. Like they seem to be kind of like playing everything close to the chest, and they're competing directly with Mafex with like a lot of the MCU stuff. And it's kind of weird to me. It's like you don't have to do that. You know, you could pick something else because you know they do have a lot of lines under their belt.
Right, and something I don't like that Figuarts is doing is giving us less stuff. Like, I wanted to pull the trigger on the Scarlet Witch, but, you know, very few sets of hands and just the two, you know, just the same effects is, you know, kind of lame because, you know, Scarlet Witch is, you know, one of those characters that she's very powerful, so we should have got more effects or more with her, especially since they want to charge so much for her.
Jesus Christ. Yeah, everybody is, man. I was looking at and I know some of it depends on where you buy the figures from, but like I was looking on Big Bad Toy Store at like Mafex stuff, and I'm like $94. Meanwhile, they've got Mezco shit sitting at 80, unless it's a exclusive. I'm like, man, get the fuck out of here. That doesn't even make sense.
I didn't even pay that much for my Wonder Woman, the Justice League one. I think I only paid what, 40, 45?
Yeah, I paid 40 for her and the Flash and Batman. I paid 40 for each of them. And then for my Mezco BVS Superman, I paid like 65 or something like that for him. So I'm like, how is it that Mezco stuff with all the different materials and all the accessories, even when they're low on accessories, it's still more than what you get in your Figuarts, and most of the time it's more than what you get in your Mafex box. How are we paying what we pay for Mafex figures with them asking $94, and sometimes their sculpts will be way off, and the articulation might not be there. Meanwhile, the Mezco has the articulation, has the face sculpts, has the accessories, and then on top of it has a soft goods, costume, or at least soft good components to the costume. I don't get it, man. It's like there's so many aspects of the like collecting process, and buying figures and pricing figures and all that stuff that's just so off that it's painful, because it's like, this is why people get taken advantage of, because there's no one speaks, a few people speak up to be like, why does something cost this much? And even fewer people vote with their wallets when there is actually an issue. You know what I mean? Like, it seems like a lot of people are quick to bandwagon on one, like they did with the Justice League figures. They bandwagoned on the Mafex figures simply because Batman was like presented in black, when in the movie he was presented in gray, just darker gray than the previous version.
Right.
And everybody, and he was shorter. I forgot. That was the main thing. He was a little shorter. But, figure arts always run short. That's the way they are. They're their own scale. They're like a relative 6-inch scale.
Right.
And people diss the shit out of that figure, even though he looks pretty legit. I mean, the muscles look right. The face looks right. I mean, to me, it looks just as good as the Mafex. The Mafex is just taller, and he comes with more shit. I mean, I'll give him that. He comes with so much crap. The Mafex one is like a nice, like, that's one of the ones that I think the price is somewhat warranted. But yeah, I don't know. The prices are strange, man. Like, Mafex, for some reason, it's like I don't know if they're jumping the shark, or I don't know. It's weird. Yeah, man, I have a handful of figures that I'm like, I tell you this stuff all the time. There's a handful of like lines that I'm really into. I've really gotten into Mafex over the last, I don't know, couple months since getting Blade. I kind of was like, you know what? I want more of my figures to have this kind of feel to it, because it feels like an experience. Like when you open up a Mezco, it's not just like, when you open up a Marvel Legend, it's like, I've finished this particular goal. Like, I want to have all the X-Men. I've got almost everyone. All I need now is Archangel, which I have him in my Amazon cart right now, so he's coming. But like the goal is to get the whole team, and then when you get them, it's like, yay, I have the whole team. So now you can look at them. If you play with your figures, you can play with them, whatever. But with your I keep saying Mafex, Mezco, you open it up and there's like so much to it. You know what I mean? You're like, I could display him like this. Oh wow, he has these weapons that represent this, or from this particular time period, like the Sovereign Knight Batman. Like, it's as close to a perfect Batman figure as I think we're ever going to get, because he literally has a little of everything. Like, I didn't know he was going to come with the extra head, the unmasked head, because it's a no-brainer. Most masked hero figures should have an unmasked alternate head, and most companies don't do that shit. Like, I've been wondering why that's not just a standard thing. Mezco always does it. Even Deathstroke, a character who, like, either he's masked or he's unmasked. You know what I mean?
Right. Like,
they gave you both. And seeing that, I was like, man, that's awesome. Giving you the option with the short ears or the long ears. What the fuck? Like, that's not necessary, but it's an option, and they gave it to you because they know some people like to display instead of actually playing with the figure. Then all the different types of batarang. I mean, you got 10 batarangs. So, like, I don't lose batarangs like that. You know what I mean? But I have 10 of them. I'm not going to lose them. I've got enough to use with other figures and everything else. It felt more like they're thinking about the full experience and not just like, here is a representation of the guy on your shelf. And I think that's the problem that Mattel has, and it's a problem that Hasbro still has when it comes to Marvel figures. And maybe it's because there's so many Marvel characters. I don't know. I could be wrong. But it feels like they're trying to go for the quantity thing and not so much the quality thing, unless we're talking about the MCU. MCU figures seem to get more love, and more, attention, and you can see it when you just look at the sculpts. Same thing with Star Wars Black figures. Every figure is a unique sculpt, unless we're talking about troopers. If they're stormtroopers or something like that, they're going to have similarities because, they're troopers. They're supposed to. They're faceless. But, like, all the characters are unique. Like, even the Mandalorian, he's got that helmet that's recognizable, but, like, just about everything else is a new sculpt.
Right.
I prefer that, you know what I mean? And it feels like I'm getting what I paid for, as opposed to paying $20 to get the same buck that I have 50 times over throughout my collection. You know what I mean? Like, that shit, it got old years ago. It was old with the DCUC line. It was old with the old Marvel Legends, and it's still old now. I mean, I get it works, but I want them to do more. Like, I don't get how, after the complaints about Cyclops having those bands on his thighs and on his boots, they released Havoc exactly the same way, with the bands that just fall off instead of pre-gluing them or making them sculpting them on. Yep. I don't understand that. You'd think, like, it was a unanimous complaint. Everybody complained about them. They said the same thing about Rogue. Some of people, I think, said the same thing about Colossus, if I remember correctly. He had some weird knee things going on, unless his were sculpted. I can't remember, but I have the Marvel Select one, so it doesn't matter to me. But people all said some of the same things. Whenever they do those floating parts, maybe it was it's Forge. Forge was the other guy. They should have those parts, glued on, or just make them part of the sculpt, and they don't, which is frustrating because it's like, you're paying $20 for essentially a painted blank. And we could do that ourselves. It's strange. But I will say, because they're giving us the selection that we've been asking for, I'm a little bit less annoyed because it's characters I actually want. You know what I mean? So the effort, I'll give them props for the effort actually being there to some degree.
Right.
What is your? I know you're a wrestling guy. Is wrestling like WWE stuff like your favorite thing to collect? Is that the best line in your opinion that you're collecting right now, or is there something else?
I know it's the one that I invest in the most. Whenever there's nothing like out, I'll usually go back on eBay or something and get a figure or two that I missed out on.
Yeah.
But I want to say the Overwatch line has been my favorite, at least with Figma doing them, not so much the Hasbro ones, because
gotcha.
Just because I had gotten the Hasbro Tracer first, and then what happened was I was on eBay and I was looking just to see how much the Figma Tracer was, and I found one for like $29.99, I think, or maybe it was a couple of dollars more than that. And she was in the box complete, and I thought that maybe the accessories were loose because the seller had displayed her for maybe one or two times, and I got her, and then when I got her in hand, I noticed that all the accessories were still sealed. So all the hands were still in there, and I pulled her out, and I was just posing her, like flipping upside down with her guns out.
Yeah.
Doing her little running pose, and she is what got me like hooked back onto like the more expensive figures, like your import figures and stuff, because I wasn't really big into Mafex and Figuarts and stuff like that. But after her, that's when I ventured into Figuarts and then back into Mafex, and
Figma's dope, man. Figma, like, I think one of my all-time favorite characters or figures came from them, and that's the Saber 2.0. I still, the engineering, the painting, her articulation, everything is just, it's like, it's not very much to compare it to, because it's like sublime. Like, they just don't do this. Typically, companies don't do figures that well, and that figure is so well done, it's ridiculous. And they rarely ever disappoint, The problem with Figmas is that if something is popular that they release, like if they make a waifu character that sells out, you're fucked if you don't get her when they first pop up, or you'll have to get a bootleg if you know. And a lot of people have that stigma about bootlegs. You know, it's not the real thing. Just save the money and buy the real thing. Yeah, but spending $100+ on a waifu action figure is kind of, you know, that's steep. That's money you could spend on other things, and it's going to sit on a shelf. I mean, if you're doing like what I've mentioned, where you collect figures that like compel you to kind of fiddle with them every time you see them, then, you know, maybe you'll get more enjoyment out of it and it'll be worth it in the long run. But typically, you know, the majority of collectors, they're just filling shelves. I mean, it sounds bad, but they're filling shelves, and like that's the honest truth for most collectors. So spending $100 on a figure so it can sit, to me, that doesn't make sense. I mean, it might make sense to other people, you know, but
Right.
that's not, to me, that doesn't make sense. And I couldn't go back and do that. Like, so sometimes with Figmas, the bootlegs tend to be the better choice, which I've read that the bootlegs have been getting better. So if they're characters, especially like of the Overwatch figures, even though they're not really going up in price, like the Overwatch Figmas,
Right.
they kind of stay. I've seen them at is like $60, which is like kind of normal for a Figma. Yeah, I don't know, but I do know what you're talking about as far as getting getting a Figma and then being impressed with what you got. Most of my Kamen Riders from Kamen Rider Ryuki, or it was called Dragon Knight in the US, most of them were Figmas. And then I went back and I started getting figure arts to mix and match certain characters. And the Figmas they're no joke, man. They're really well done figures. The articulation is nice. It's real easy to play with. You don't have to like worry about things breaking and falling off because it's pretty sturdy. You know, like they feel even sturdier than figure arts in many cases. So, yeah, I hear you on that. How many figure arts Overwatch guys did you pick up?
So far I have just Tracer and Reaper. I've been looking at getting Diva, but I might just wait till Black Friday and see if she drops a little bit.
Oh, because is she at Target? I've seen Genji, but I've seen Genji and I've seen Widowmaker at Target, the Figma versions, but I've never seen Diva.
I think Diva got released this year, but I think she's only on like your import sites like Hobbylink Japan or like Big Bad Toy Store
Gotcha.
and stuff like that. I almost had the chance to get Widowmaker for I think the same price I got Reaper at, which I think was like $20.
Damn.
Yeah. What happened was someone in one of the group chats that I'm in said that ThinkGeek had it was like a big table and whatever was on it was like, what was it, like 50 or 80% off. So
where was it?
It was at ThinkGeek.
What?
Yeah,
wow.
they had like a row of the Widowmakers and the Reapers, and I asked him if he could grab me the Reaper. That's when I tried to get you one because I asked him if he'd be able to grab me too, but he said by the time he got there, they only had one left. So
yeah, I would imagine, because the reason why they were peg warming is because they were like $80 or $75 a piece. It's like at most places, most domestic retailers, and most people aren't selling. They're not paying that for a figure. If you're going to a domestic, retailer to buy an action figure, you're spending $20, maybe $30. I mean, it's the same problem that Storm Collectibles had. Figure Arts had it beforehand when they were selling Power Rangers, the Samurai Power Rangers in Toys R Us.
I think I remember seeing that they had those there.
I was surprised. I was super surprised. And then I ended up getting, I guess the version I got was the Shinkenger, because that's what they're called in Japan. Shinken Red. I got him for like, I don't know, $25, almost $30, because he was on clearance because they weren't selling. And then I saw Bison and Bison and Storm Collectibles and Bison and Ryu at Toys R Us because for some reason they were trying to sell them there, but I'm like, no one is going to pay $70 for these figures. They're just not, unless they're like scalpers or hardcore collectors. And so in our area, there was a wall of like, I don't know, 8 Bisons and 8 Ryus, and it was there for what, the year and some change that those figures have been out. And I was just like, man, like, I don't understand the pricing. Like, they should make an edition for Toys R Us that comes with less stuff, that cost a little bit less, so that, you know, people would be inclined to buy them from Toys R Us. You know, it's like they're not being slick about how they represent these things here to get people into that type of figure. Because even them, man, when you look at Storm Collectibles, man, it's comedy looking at the pricing on some of those figures. Like those new Street Fighter figures, Ryu was like $90-something. Ken was like $65. Guile was like $95. Cammy was like $80-something. I'm like, it's a line. Usually a line has an MSRP. You don't just price each individual figure differently because of the popularity of the figure. It's not eBay, but once again, you know, collecting is completely fucked. It's just so broken that, you know, these are the things we have to kind of deal with when we're looking at, you know, trying to get those, you know, the best versions or the coolest versions of our favorite characters, you know?
Right.
I hope, you were trying to get into your favorite. You said it was Ultimates. I mean, not the Hasbro ones, but the Figma Overwatch figures, right?
Right.
Okay. Is there any specific, which character of the Overwatch like pantheon is your favorite?
I'd have to say like Tracer is my favorite, and I was hoping that with Hasbro getting the license that they would make like the one skin that I like of Tracer, like besides their classic one, and that's the graffiti one where she has like the what is it, like the mask, like the filtered mask, and she has like the hoodie up. And
Oh yeah, I've seen that. I didn't realize that was actually in the game. I'm not big on Overwatch as a game. I don't like hero shooters.
I
I'm
think
not a fan.
I played it one time at my friend's house. He had it on like the computer, and I tried, and I wasn't that great at it. But like he sat down and he was like pushing all these buttons like all quick, and I was like, how do you do that just with the like WASD and all these keys? Like I need a controller. I can't
Yeah,
do. But
yeah.
yeah. I like
Huh.
the story behind Overwatch is just it's interesting,
Oh
but
yeah. I've watched a lot of those like lore vids for it and stuff. I dig the style. That's what drove me into paying attention. It drew me in based on the style, based on, I mean, I think that's the case for a lot of people. While everything else is looking like Call of Duty or Gears of War, then you have this shooter that looks like some anime that we all missed. You know, it came out years ago and we just never saw it. And yeah, the stories are pretty cool. The variety of characters is pretty cool. I mean, there's some issues with some of the designs, and I felt this beforehand, and I saw a video about it, and I was like, I'm glad I'm not the only person who noticed some of this stuff. But overall, though, it's a pretty nice series of characters and, you know, cool, like super heroic backstories and military intrigue and all that shit. It's nice. It's nice. It's a pretty well done series. It almost feels like they almost always intended for these characters to kind of find life as action figures, because that's literally what it feels like they were created to be, you know?
exactly.
Like their design aesthetics feel like you know, just perfect for action figures. I mean, the weapons are all unique. They have a nice color each character has a nice color palette. And then there's a variety of skins for all the characters, so you can get different versions. I wish that's what Hasbro would do instead of recoloring the existing you know, characters that they've already done, because that shit's old and they need to stop. Because it's not like we're not 3D printing shit. You know, you're 3D printing a lot of things, It's
Well,
not like
that's
the process takes the amount of time that it once did. You know what I mean? Like back in the day, I got it. You made your molds and it took longer, you know, but now you have 3D printers. So you can 3D print your molds. You can 3D print your, you know what I mean? Your prototype faster. And, you know, you can do more that way than back in the day where you had to have someone do it by hand. Then they had to, you know, do the whole, you know, molding process by hand, then create the fucking steel or copper molds or whatever. And
right.
they're not doing all of that anymore. So when they pretend and they sell it that way and they've convinced people that, you know, this is the process, this is why it takes so long, this is why we keep recoloring the same figures over and over and over and over. I don't know why anyone buys repaints. Like, I mean, unless the repaint was the color you were waiting for and you didn't buy the original, I still don't know why that's a thing. Like, it pisses me off when I see Hasbro do that with Transformers. I'm like, you make a unique character, and then now you're going to resell it to us in different colors and try to convince us it's a different character? Why?
Right.
Just because you can. It's annoying.
Like that's what they did with Overwatch figures. They had what was it? It was like the anniversary of the game was this year,
Yeah.
and what happened was they like posted a picture, and it was Diva, Zarya, Genji, and someone else, and they were in like black and pink and all these
Yeah.
different colors, and I was like, that's it? Like, this is like a big deal. Like, this is the anniversary of a game, and you just, there you go. Like, they could have went all out. Like, they could have given us like the skins that people actually like. Like, you can go on, you know, Google and look it up, and there are all these, you know, different skins that are super popular that people love, and you know, you could have went all out and did that, but they just went and did the cheap way.
Yep. Yeah, I mean, I get it. It's a business, and I'm not going to rag on them any. I mean, I have spent years ragging on the business savviness of some of these corporations making action figures. The reason why I'm not going to do it anymore, I'm going to slow down with it, is because no matter what I'm saying, the fan base still falls for the same shit. And if they keep falling for the same shit, there's really no reason to point out that it's, you know, it's anything other than what it is, because if the fans don't care, then I guess they don't care. They enjoy giving their money away, you know, bending over backwards to get that ashy dick, because, like, it's pretty obvious what's being done. You know, you keep buying the same figure over and over and over and over and over. And it's like, you know, how many times are you going to rebuy the same character and then make a review about it like it's a different character, or a showcase video about it like it's a different character? I'm like, I don't know. That's part of why I never got into I was never super hardcore into Marvel Legends, like, overall. And then, you know, with some of the older wrestling figures I was like that with, I couldn't get into them because I kept noticing some of the reuse. I mean, and they're wrestlers, so obviously there's elements that you reuse over and over, like knee pads, boots, you know, the underwear piece. But like body types, you kept seeing the same body types over and over. It was like 3 or 4 body types that they would spread out across all the different wrestlers. And I'm like, you know, some of these guys didn't have those kind of builds. And then every now and then they would go off and like they did with Hulk Hogan multiple times. There's like the really huge, young, like slightly younger 80s Hulk Hogan. Then there's like the 90s Hulk Hogan in the red and yellow, who's kind of smaller. He's like a little bit smaller, but he was an elite figure. Then there's a, you know, the, like right before the NWO years, right before he left and went to WCW. And they, all of them have different body types. But then you have characters like the Cats in the Shield, and 2 of them have the same body type, even though Dean Ambrose had his own, like, not super muscular body type compared to, you know, Seth and Roman. They didn't, you know what I'm saying? Like, they could have given them all completely different body types. Instead, 2 of them have similar body types, and then 1 is the big, bulky body, you know? I don't know.
Right.
I just, stuff like that kind of, it bugs me, because it's like, you know, you can do it differently. I've seen smaller companies, and I always come back to Soda Toys. almost every figure was a unique sculpt, with the exception of Ken, Ryu, Akuma, and then Dan later on. They all had their own sculpts. They all had, their own series of art, different articulation, and one guy sculpted all those figures. So like, there's no excuse. One guy did all that shit, and the company was way smaller than Hasbro, and it was like they had to pull in probably like a 100th of what Hasbro pulls in. You know what I mean? And this guy did that by himself. Small company with only a few, employees, and they only had a couple licenses, and their figures were less than $20. Even the big figures in the line, like T-Hawk and M. Bison, Balrog, Scott, though all those characters were they're 7-8 inch characters and or figures, and they all cost the same price as the smaller ones, because the MSRP for the line was like $17.99 or whatever, or $15.99, whatever. So, when they do it the way they're doing it now, it's clear that it's like, they're trying to get over, and they realize that they can get over, so they just keep doing it, the way they've been doing it. And it's it's getting old. It's getting really old. It's kind of the problem I have with video games, and that's why I don't buy video games like I used to. And I've mentioned it in a couple off our brains before that, like, the PS4 is the last system I'm buying, last new system I'm buying. After that, I'm just going to go back and focus on emulation and get all the shit that I missed out on for my PS3, and then maybe, down the road I'll get all the stuff I missed out on the PS4. But I'm not jumping in. They're not going to trick me and say the PS5 is backwards compatible with PS4 and then leave out the PS3 and the 2 and the 1. I mean, luckily I still have those systems, but like, the whole point of you getting the upgrade system is that it could do everything the other 3 or of the previous ones do, and then more. And instead, what they're doing is it slightly does the same shit a little bit better. And then they're charging you more money, and then telling you have to rebuy all the old games again. Like, yeah, nah, you can miss me with that shit. Like, I don't have the patience or the money to go back and rebuy every single game that I bought previously. That's not even the company treating the fans correctly, for you sticking with them or whatever. So, yeah, same thing. I'm kind of, I guess the tricks are kind of starting to stand out, and I'm not playing that. But the happy stuff, we'll continue talking about the happy stuff with collecting and whatnot. How do you feel about this new bullshit with YouTube kind of demonetizing? It's not even kind of. They're demonetizing the toy channels, and there's going to be some new authorization or new, not authorization, but verification process to make sure that your videos pass muster and are not being aimed at children and stuff like that. Like, how do you feel about this whole thing? Do you think it's worthy of all the drama that we've been hearing?
No, I don't think so. I mean, at least not for me, because I'm not even close to the sub count to be monetized anyway. And like you do, I just speak what I feel, and sometimes I don't use the best vocabulary.
Yeah,
so,
same here.
So I mean, it's like if I gotta click the little button to say it's not for the kiddos, then it's not for the kiddos.
Yeah. Well, and that's the funny thing, though, is that, like, a lot of the channels, most of them, the problem that they run into is that they present their channel as if it's kid-friendly, but you're reviewing fucking Pennywise, the fucking clown. Like, that's not a kid-friendly character. I don't care if you let your kids watch it, that's your prerogative and whatnot, but that's not a kid-friendly character. Or you're reviewing, I don't know, the McFarlane Twisted Fairy Tales figures, or you know what I mean, like Aliens movie figures. Like, that's not kid friendly content. So, but you're doing it, and you're not cursing, you're not directing, you're not doing anything to support the fact that the figure you're reviewing was adult oriented to begin with. Something that the kids shouldn't be, in a regular world, kids wouldn't really be permitted to watch. So, Pixel Dan reviewing Aliens figures, all happy and super nice and, clean cut. It's like, what the fuck? Why? This is where the confusion lies, because who are you? If it's not obvious who you're talking to, then it's easy for them to say, oh yeah, you're being disingenuous. You're aiming this at kids. Because why else? I say it in my video before they start. It says, yeah, warning, this video contains strong language. Because 95% of the state of New Jersey, I curse like a fucking sailor. Right. So I'm not gonna, I'm not trying to water it down. I'm just talking to you the way I would talk to you if we were in the same room, just shooting the shit about games and figures and movies and shit. But a lot of people put on this, I don't know, it's like they play this role on YouTube, and it's kind of frustrating because you don't have to. I know if you're vlogging and shit like that, you kind of have to, you got to have your lo-fi hip hop, royalty free lo-fi hip hop beat. You got to have your time lapse, transitional shots of, the city, your B-roll of the city moving and fast forward and shit. You got to do those generic things, but that's different. We're talking action figures. If you're into a lot of the stuff that we talk about, you're of a certain age, and we know superheroes appeal to kids of all ages. But if we're being fair, talking about this fucking $700 Unicron, it's not adults talking to kids about that shit. You know what I mean? No kids asking. Well, I shouldn't say no kid, because it would probably be surprising how many kids are actually asking for that shit. But typically, kids aren't asking for a $700 toy, not an action figure. If they're asking for a $700 toy, it's probably a PlayStation or an Xbox or something, or a TV to play that stuff on. But I don't know. I feel like a lot of these channels have made they've made this a problem for themselves by not being straightforward with who their audience actually is, and trying to kind of check all the boxes and please everyone. YouTube was trying to say, don't curse because then it makes your video not advertiser friendly. I'm like, the last time I checked, it's about YouTube. YouTube is about us. It's not about the advertisers. I get it. They're part of the equation, but if there's no videos for the ads to be on, then the advertisers will have to find another place. Because if they've become really aggressive. 2 ads back to back before a video starts, sometimes in the middle of a video, and sometimes 2 at the end. And it's like, really? Are that many people actually buying shit from YouTube ads? It must be. It's strange to me, man. It's like there's no place where you can go where it's actually focused on the the people, and corporate interests can't be kind of kept at bay, because it just feels like the focus is the advertisers, and the content creators take a back seat to that, and everything that YouTube is doing is to appease the corporate entities and advertisers, not us, and we're the ones creating the content that you can put those ads on. And it's like, if they were smart, well, if the content creators were smarter, kind of like what I said earlier with the way figures are sold to us, we would be able to stage a pretty big mass exodus to show them that they need to do things differently. The problem is no one would do it. It would, people will talk about it like they did last time with the adpocalypse.
Right.
But only a handful of people actually would do it. So, and that's the biggest problem, If we had more of a unified front, we could actually remind them how this thing works, and then we'd be good. Because then the advertisers would stop, and they'd be like, okay, maybe we do need to chill out and back off, stop trying to turn this into cable, and things would be a little bit different. But yeah, I don't know. I'm not really scared. I just feel like it's one of those things we just have to see what it's going to look like. And
Right.
if by next year, the beginning of next year, you know, it's real shitty and no one's able to comment on any of the action figure videos, and the so-called team of folks that's going through looking at toy related content and anything with superheroes involved can't tell the difference between videos that are aimed at adults versus videos aimed at children. And so we all just get kind of screwed. I guess we all stop, theoretically, we all stop doing it. I mean, I'm not making money off YouTube. I mean, there have been opportunities to be monetized through YouTube, but I always knew, like, if you're monetized through YouTube, then you have to follow 100% of YouTube's guidelines, which most of them are bullshit. So, you know, I wanted to be able to say what I'm trying to say and not have them, you know, censor the fuck out of what I'm trying to say, which they're still trying to do, which is frustrating, you know?
Right.
So, I don't know. It would be cool if somehow, you know, because I also, for a while, I was putting things up on Daily Motion. And not very many people use Daily Motion. Not even after I told them, you know, hey, I've got more stuff here, so if YouTube bans me or kills my channel, at least you'll be able to find my content there. And yeah, I mean, I think I have 2 videos that have like almost the entirety of my my subscriber count on YouTube watch the videos on Daily Motion, and that's it. And then after a while, I was seeing I'd have like 2 views or 10 views, you know what I mean? Or maybe 100 views. I'm just like, if nobody's watching, I got to kind of put this energy somewhere else, because it's kind of hard to keep doing this stuff and have nobody pay attention to it. You know, the idea is to speak to an audience, and if the audience isn't there, you're wasting your time, you know? But at least at this point, I guess I should say, because I mean, when you're starting up, you obviously have to find an audience. So, you know, that's where you keep plugging and see how it works. But I mean, I've been doing YouTube since 2008, something like 2008, and it's a long time to be on YouTube and not get the kind of attention that people who've been on YouTube for a shorter period of time have managed to get. So, I don't know. I feel like if I'm going to move to a different, platform, if people don't move with me, it's not really worth it.
Right. And what's crazy is if you go back, like you said, you were doing this since 2008. If you go back around that time, no one was even talking about monetization or ads or anything. Like, you know, back in 2008, YouTube was just a way of us, you know, sharing information. Like, you know, someone would go on a toy hunt or something, and you'd see something that they found, and, you know, you'd communicate with them, and they communicate with you, and, you know, that way you'd be able to find whatever that was. Yep. And now it's just all about making money.
Yeah, exactly. Which, you know, I get it. Some people got to do different things to have different streams of revenue, because things are more expensive these days. It's just the way it is. But at the same time, when we're talking hobbies, there's got to be a love of the hobby. If there's no love for the hobby, you know what I mean? You turn it all into a business, and it's all business. That's how you end up with guys who review figures and have no idea where the fuck the guy came from. Right. You know, that's how you have JC talking about Tamashii Nations. Like, dude, read. It's Tamashii Nations. It's been that way from day one. All you have to do is read up on these characters if you don't know who they are. You know, you're a news channel, essentially. Action figure news. Do a little bit more research, you know?
Right.
How do I pronounce this Japanese word? Tamashii. They say it in their own little advertisements on their channel, you know? Like, that's all you got to do. But, yeah, I don't know. It's all strange. Who are some reviewers that you dig, and some viewers that you don't really dig that much? Some reviewers you don't dig that much?
I don't know. I don't really, you know, watch, you know, that many reviewers. It's just kind of, You know, if it's a figure that you know, interested in possibly purchasing, then you know, I'll kind of look around and, you know, do my research. But I don't really have any favorites.
Yeah.
Um,
What about ones you've watched that you just were like, whoo, I'm not
I
going
think it
back
would
to
be.
that site.
I think I think it would be you, because that I found your channel through when you were doing the 50th anniversary stuff, and then as I
Uh,
dug deeper and deeper, I was like, I really dig his content. Like, he's different than what everyone else is doing. Like, I feel like, you know, after watching all these videos, I feel like I learned something. It was
thanks,
like
I'm glad.
it was like school, but it was the school of action figures, not so much the school of math, science, reading,
Yeah.
history type of stuff.
Oh my God, maybe I need to take up that angle. Professor Strident. Um, that would be cool. No, I'm glad. I'm glad. I just, there's so many aspects about the whole thing that, like, you know, it feels like nobody talks about this stuff, you know? Like, the folks that have been collecting G.I. Joe since the 80s, only G.I. Joe, and there's so many things they don't notice. I'm like, but this is like your world. You should notice this stuff, you know what I mean? Or like they consume every aspect of the G.I. Joe brand, but they never have an opinion about, like a real opinion about what it is you're consuming. It's just all lollipops and fucking rainbows and shit. And I'm like, really? I mean, at least with Form BX 257, which he was the first like GI Joe person that I watched on YouTube ever. Um, he will say like he's only collecting the mainline characters. He won't get the like the repainted versions of them, like the sub teams, because he feels like it's just a trick to get you to rebuy the figures. And I'm like, yeah, I agree. It's nice to hear a grown man use some logic, you know, like you hear these other guys just like, go buy it all, get everything. It's all awesome. I'm like, no, it's not. Buying Cobra vehicles with GI Joe colors is stupid.
Oh
Because
yeah, I remember they did that.
like I've never
They had like
understood
a Cobra. I think it was a Cobra Rattler in like GI Joe colors.
yeah, the Tiger Force was like that, and then the Python Patrol was like that for the Joe. I mean for the Cobras, and then you know same thing with like Night Force. You had a couple Cobra vehicles in there that were repainted to be GI Joe, and it's just like this is just a trick to resell the same shit. You're telling me that
Right.
the colors are so great that it inspires you to rebuy the same figure? Like I get it when we're kids, but when we're adults, you have to be able to see the trick. You know what I mean? Like as an adult, because it doesn't do anything. Like you know, people's you know, it's hard enough to get a good Night Raven, but then people are like, "Oh, I want the Sky Force or Sky Patrol Night Raven because it's chrome, that vac metal shit." Vac metal to me always made toys look cheap. It always looked like shit you'd find in the dollar store, even on Transformers. Because I mean, when you go to the dollar store, tell me there isn't an overabundance of vac metal shit.
There is.
It's like that's what you see in the dollar store. And then when I'm talking to folks about GI Joe and they bring up Sky Patrol, I'm just like, I can't believe I'm having this conversation. And you're so positive about the gaudiest looking shit. Like it doesn't even make sense. I mean, I get it in the air, it's reflective. Maybe that would work, you know, because the clouds and the sky and everything will be reflecting off of it. Maybe you can use that to your advantage. And I know some of the paneling that's used on vehicles that can, you know, hit upper atmosphere. They tend to be somewhat, you know, reflective and somewhat, you know, on the chrome-ish side. You know, they're like silver and whatnot. But I mean, it's the same vehicles though. Like if they had made new vehicles and said, you know, these are vehicles that do, you know, whatever the thing is, and they're new. They're not stuff you already had. They're not stuff you already saw with a new coat of paint. I would have been like, oh yeah, I'm all aboard. But it's literally the same shit from the previous years being dumped on you with a new generic ass, you know, dollar store paint job. And to me, I don't get it. And you rarely hear any like And I'm not saying everybody has to dislike it, but I mean, for me, that's something I felt. Even as a kid, I was like, nah, I'm okay. I just want a couple vehicles, and I knew which ones I wanted. You know, real bad when I was a kid, and
Right.
I got like one or two of them when I was a little kid, and then as an adult, I went back and got the rest because I was like, okay, now I can afford to actually spend the money and get these things. But I don't know, man. It's really weird. It's really weird. I can tell you, back to the original question, I guess I can tell you some of the folks I like. I dig retro blasting because much like what I'm talking about back and forth as we go through these different talking points.
Right.
Michael on that channel, he kind of epitomizes a lot of the things that I talk about, where it's like you collect like you have some kind of sense. Don't just buy everything. And then, kind of research the things that you're going to spend money on, especially when you're doing vintage, when you're collecting vintage lines. Research that shit so you can find deals. If you have to buy like a job lot of stuff, do that so that you can have parts to fix up some of these other parts you might get if you've bought, a couple different job lots. And that way you end up getting closer to your end goal without spending as much money. Don't just drop the money so you can brag about it, because that's just dumb. You don't really get any cool points for, overspending on a toy. I mean, at least in my book, you wouldn't. Apparently, there must be people that are like, dude, you spent $500 on that, and give them a high five, like in the old Crossfire commercials, where the the slow mo high five, the freeze frame high five. Yeah, man. Like, yeah, nah, nah. But I love retro blasting. Their theme song is awesome. I love I think next time, since I know that Hangouts is still out.
Right.
Because I thought for a long time that when they got rid of Google Plus, the Hangouts was going to go with it. But Hangouts is still there, so I might do it. This is the way we used to do these podcasts. We would do them through Google Hangouts. So next time I'll set up a Hangouts that way so we could do that. And I want to have a couple more people on there too, because I've been meaning to get with Jossie Townsend. He's the dude that sent me the Joy Toy figures.
Oh yeah.
Him and I, like, I've been friends with him online for a long time, and we've been meaning to just sit down and just chat about figures and just how crazy it all has gotten, and we just never ever have the schedule to pull these things off. So I'm gonna try and do that next time. But I kind of want to make this a regular thing where every now and then, maybe every other Off Our Brains is a sit down with somebody on the Facebook page, or someone that's a viewer or something like that, so that you hear something other than the same people saying the same shit, because you already know what I'm gonna say. Like, most of the time, like, if it works the way they tell you it's supposed to work, then you got yourself a deal. If it doesn't, then it's a piece of shit. You need to take it back, unless it holds some kind of nostalgic value to you, and then you go from there. But what I was saying was about retro blasting. I love their channel. I dig what Mike has to say, even though he mostly talks about like vintage stuff, and I'm not so hardcore vintage. I mean, I kind of dabble back and forth, but I like hearing him bring some logic to the collecting arguments or collecting conversation, because too much of the collecting conversation is focused on nostalgia, and that's it. Like, people don't. There's reviewers that don't know the difference between a review and a showcase, and I'm like, you do this every day. How do you not know which one is which? So it's nice when you come across a channel where people know the difference, and they'll let you know, like, this is a showcase about, or just my thoughts on this line. It's not a review. It's just how I feel about it. That's awesome. And then when he does a review, he gives you all kinds of information, kind of like what you said with some of my videos. You learn something, and then you come out of there like, fuck, I had no idea that, it was that deep. You know, I always thought it was a real simple thing, depending on whatever the franchise might be. Um, I have a love-hate relationship with Toy Galaxy. I used to love the channel when he first started because he was another guy that used to say things that I wish more collectors would say, like more online personalities would say in the collector, world or whatever. Like when
Right.
he would say, if you see two of them, leave one for the next collector. That made me so happy because I'm like, you know how greedy some of these motherfuckers are? Like, you see dudes, like there was a dude who constantly, he buys up Deadpool shit. And he always posts in all the groups, I have a wall full of whatever the Deadpool is that all the Deadpool fans are looking for. And I'm like, what kind of like dickhead shit is that where you're just like it's like show and tell the way that little evil, wretched kids would do back in the day, the little asshole kid who has everything because I don't know, parents are divorced, so one just buys him everything to win him over, so they brag about it, but nobody wants to play with them because that kid's an asshole, like they're doing that shit but as an adult. And I'm like, why? And people are like, dude, sell me one. And he's like, nah, none of these are for sale. I'm like, you've got 20 of the same figure covering a wall and you can't sell one to somebody who actually wants to pay for it. You could go buy another one.
Right.
But it's like that's the way it goes. So yeah, hearing Dan Larson say some of that stuff, I was just like, man, that's awesome. But then there's times where he goes into like full on neurotic collector mode, and I can't get down with that. I cannot. It does. Collecting for me is a happy place. So bringing all that drama and all that, the OCD and the no, not to the collection. It's simple. You like what you like. You collect what you like. Bringing up the fact that you can't decide which Captain America you want, so you buy all of them because sometimes you like the wing ears, and sometimes you don't. Sometimes you like the chainmail, and sometimes you don't. Sometimes you like the big boots, and sometimes you like the short boots. And it's like, dude, really, it's not that difficult. Just pick one. Pick a couple of them. I don't know. I'm OCD about certain things, but not my collection. Not like that. But
I think
at
the
one time,
only
I got
the
into it with him because he said that he did a comparison of the Figuarts Darth Maul and the Black Series Darth Maul, and he said that the Figuarts Darth Maul came with too much stuff. He said he gave him too many options. I was like, since when is more options a bad thing? You paid $60 for the figure. Why would they give you less? And he was like, it's my show. I can have I can have whatever opinion I want. I was like, I said, since when has more options been bad? I'm not telling you can't have your opinion. But I was like, if that's the way you want to talk, you know what I mean? Then hey, whatever. Good luck. I'm not going to argue with you. It just that turned me off because that's not the kind of conversation, two adults talking about toys. And it turned out it turned into it's my house. I can do what I want. Like, okay. All right, see you later. Enjoy. But yeah, I
yeah,
don't
I
know.
think
Most
the only time that I would buy like doubles of figures, or if they're like true builders, like for the Joes, I'll buy doubles, or if
yeah,
it's figures that I want to use for like customs for some reason, then I'll buy
true.
doubles of them. So I have one, like for the wrestlers, I'll buy one so I have it to look like this, and then I have one to look like this, so that it's, there's some variety in, that section of my collection.
It makes sense. It makes complete sense. Yeah, you gotta have some kind of logic. That was the next thing. That was something I had written down here too. How, when you collect, how do you do it? Like, what is your logic behind how you go about getting what you get? I mean, I kind of know because we've talked forever, so I know, like, just based on our back and forths. But I guess for the audience out there, what kind of things do you keep in mind when you are collecting a line? Or do you go in like, I have to get every single guy, every one, every variation, everything? Or do you have like certain things that you want, certain things that catch your attention, and then you go from there?
That's a good question. like with going back to the wrestlers, it like certain like it's certain attires that I'll buy just because I like that attire. But some of them, like I won't go buy every single one. Like for example, like I just got AJ Styles Elite off eBay, and it was one that I liked. That it came out like a couple of years ago, but I got him for really cheap, and I was happy about it because it was a attire that I wanted of his. But yeah, I really only have like one or two of his figures because it's just one or two of his attires that I like. Like I don't buy every single one of his attires because sometimes I don't really feel I don't dig some of his you know
Yeah,
choices in attires, but if it's like Jeff Hardy, then again I'll just buy the ones that I like you
exactly.
know if there's like a face paint or like something about it that I don't like, I'll just pass and I'll save my money and get you know the one that I like.
Exactly.
So
Yeah, that makes sense. It makes a lot of sense because that's the way. That's a conscious way of doing it. You know, the unconscious way would be to just be like, oh, it's whichever guy. I'm just gonna buy every single one just because. And it's like, I mean, I know some people that's their thing. They pick a line and they want every single character in the line. And hey, you have that. If you have it like that, then go for it.
right,
But I
but
think
you also got to take into consideration like how much do I have you know, in terms of spending that I can use to, add, one or two or, a couple of new figures to the shelf until next payday,
yep.
you know.
Or how much space are you working with? Like I don't have
Right,
infinite space, so I found myself kind of I always rotate through stuff, but like a lot of my Joe vehicles are in storage because well not storage they're in my I have them in a closet
right,
in containers because I have all the Joes themselves on display, but I don't have all the vehicles because I don't have room for them. Like I've got an area where the Beast, the True Heroes AC-130, and the Rainfire are all like suspended, hanging from the ceiling. I always bump my head on the fucking Beast, like every time. I don't know why. I try to duck out the way, and I always end up hitting it. But I want to do that with most of the planes, but I'm just like, yeah, then my ceiling will fall because
just,
I've got a lot of
just
fucking planes, and
you
I don't
just
want
come
to
in
just
one day and it's just your entire ceiling is just collapsed.
exactly, and I don't want to overdo it. I feel like there's a point where because my man cave is also my studio where I create art, I
Right,
draw, I do everything up here, and I don't want to overdo it to the point where it's all toys, but there's nothing else. Because I also have my movies up here, my games are up here, my books are up here. My comics. My all my art stuff is up here, and it already is skewed a little bit more towards the action figures, which is fine because they're a source of inspiration. But I don't want it to be skewed 100% one way. I kind of want an even helping of each thing. So, yeah, I keep space in mind. Space lately has been the biggest thing where I'm just like, yeah, I got to rethink my shelves and rethink, like how things are set up so that I get a certain look out of my, my space. Yeah, it's a different process these days, and it's weird that you only hear these, like I hear Bobby Skullface talk about this stuff a lot, space and like what kind of shelves to use and how do you light the shelves if they're deep. Um, do you get similar shelves all across the board? Do you get different shelves? Do you get detolfs? Do you get, whatever? Because how the way that a lot of the collecting community does things is whatever's popular at the time, everybody jumps in on it. It's like, what if that doesn't fit your situation? Like you've got a short ceiling but you've got tall detolfs because all your homeboys got detolfs in their setups. That doesn't necessarily work for you. So you don't need to jump on the bandwagon with that. But, you've got a lot of that going on. I see it on Instagram every time, and I'm just like, come on, guys. there's billions of options when it comes to shelves. You don't have to do what the last Marvel Legends collector did. Do your own thing. But, you know, that's a big fundamental difference between my perspective and a lot of other people's perspective. You know, I'm not about, and I'm not going to co-sign other people just bandwagoning. Do your own thing. Figure out your own, you know, perspective, your own way of doing things. You might enjoy it, you know. You might come across something you never knew existed because you went your own way. You figured out your own, you know, your own process. And I don't mean go your own way, you know, that shit that shows up online these days. What they call MGTOW or whatever. Nah, I'm not talking about that shit. I'm talking about just figuring out your own, you know, perspective on how you want to display your collection. How much stuff do you want to have in your rooms? You know, when you collect the collection, do you want all of it, or do you want like an all-stars kind of setup where you pick the guys you love the most and that's your collection? That's typically what I do. There's only 2, maybe 3 collections that I got everybody. And even in them, I left out at least one character because I didn't really like that character. So I was like, no, like Cops. I was like, yeah, no, I'm not getting all I want almost the whole collection minus Nightstick because he's fucking lame. I was like, there's no way I'm spending money for this generic ass Asian stereotype, you know, Cops character that doesn't even fit in the grand scheme of things. So I left him out. The same went with what's another thing? The Kamen Rider Dragon Knight / Kamen Rider Ryuki. There's a couple characters I didn't get because I couldn't find them for a good price. I don't have Kamen Rider Onyx, which is just a black repaint of Ryuki, who is the red Kamen Rider with the dragon motif. And you know me, I don't like buying repaints, so I felt kind of like, ugh. And then Blank is Ryuki, but gray. And I was like, yeah, no. No. I'm not going to spend $60 on a gray version of a guy I already have already. Like, that's, I don't know. To me, that's dumb. There's got to be more to it than just the same character than that. I mean, I get it. In the show, there's like, you know, story to why those characters exist. One is like a dark version of him, and then the other version is kind of him before he fully realizes his powers. Like, I really don't give a shit. Like, I like the character once he has realized his power, so I left that out.
Right.
But yeah, sometimes that's what I do. Like, you know, I'm a big Tokusatsu fan, so I have like, and Super Sentai fan, so I have teams of Rangers, but there are certain teams where I left out certain characters. You know, like I couldn't find. I have all the the '90s Power Rangers movie figures because I love those suits, but the only one I couldn't get is the Black Ranger because for some reason he goes for like 10 times what the rest of them go for. And I don't even understand what happened. And I could never find like online a good explanation as to why his figure costs almost $100 while everybody else is going for $10 or 15 or $20. Like, it doesn't make sense to me. And I don't know what the situation was that created that. So I have everybody else except him. So, which kind of pisses me off. Because I really wanted Adam is cool, and I really wanted to have like a complete set. So that's one of the guys that I always look for when I go to conventions, like when I'm looking through boxes of figures and shit, just to see, I come across that guy. Are there any? What are some of your holy grails, man?
Oh man, if there was like one that I wish I could own, it'd be the Defiant.
Oh wow,
G.I. Joe Defiant.
Yeah, you should look for one. Do a restoration project on that.
Because I've always been like a fan of space. Like I've always, as a kid, always fascinated with like space and planets and NASA and stuff. And then like the first time I saw Alien, I was like, my mind was blown. And then I saw Aliens, and I was like I was just completely blown, like mouth open. Like I had no idea this existed.
Yeah.
And, yeah.
That'd be cool. Yeah, I swear, look for parts. Get it in parts. It'll save you money, and it'll make the whole experience more worthwhile. I mean, essentially, I got mine like 85% complete, and then I had to go search out all the other parts. I still have like one, maybe two pieces that I need for it to be completely 100%. But the process has been cool because, I'm meeting that's how a lot of the Joe collectors that I've met in person, that's how I've met them, is through going to shows and looking for, dealers that sell, parts for G.I. Joe vehicles, and, connecting with people through, eBay and Facebook to try to get parts for the right price, because, man, they will gouge you for some, like, simple parts. I mean, people will be selling, like, parts of the gantry for like 20 or 30 bucks, and it's like a wheelbase, or like, a ladder, or or like an engine piece, and they're selling it for 60 bucks, and it's just one piece. It's like, come on, guys. And there's all these excuses as to why. Oh, it's a rare part. It's the part that breaks the... Man, I've heard that about every piece that I've bought. Oh, they all break real easily, blah, 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 whatever. So you have to meet people, have them hook you up or direct you to the right place to buy this stuff, so that you don't spend too much money. And, you get a quality piece that hasn't been, like, glued back together, and then it'll break when you try to apply it to yours,
Right.
But that's a good grail. That's a definitely good grail. At least it does something, unlike the
flag.
The flag is a glorified table. It's like a coffee table, and a lot of people want to tell everyone something else. No, in order to make it a play set, you still have to do a lot of work. You're gonna have to build that armature, like what Michael Mercy did, and like what Steven from G.I. Joe Bird did, and put wheels on it. You gotta dedicate a part of your house to that big ass thing, because where's it gonna be?
Right. It's like hollowed on one side. It's like,
pretty much.
It's like, here's half a ship. We can give you the other half. You just use your imagination and pretend there's a whole other half of this ship.
So yeah, it's weird. It's really weird. It's one of those things where you have to. It's just a lot of. There's a lot of. You're gonna have to dedicate a lot to that item, that one item, to make it worthwhile. So I don't know. For me, it was a no-brainer. It was always the Defiant of the biggest thing, and then the next one was the MCC. That was the Mobile Command Center. That thing was always like a must-have, and I got lucky to get that. Actually got it for my birthday. We found it at the Columbus Toy and Game Show. Some guy tried to take it from me while we were in because I was walking around with it. I got it like kind of midway through the show, and I put it down next to me while I was situating everything. And this guy was like, he was floating around me the whole time. And so while I'm standing next to it, I put it down so I could put what I had just bought in my book bag. And this dude walked right up and tried to grab it. And I'm like, dude, no. Like, this is mine. Back up. And he's like, oh, that's a nice, pretty clean version of the Defiant. So I was just surprised. Super surprised. Hey, hold on for just a second, okay?
Yeah.
Okay, I'm back. Yeah, I gotta wrap it up. We have some fun errands to run. Nothing bad. I just gotta go to Target and go pick up some medication for my son who's got terrible allergies, kind of like me. So yeah, that part's always fun. Can you still hear me?
Yeah.
Okay. All right, so give me just a second It's funny. I screwed up and I wiped I had a newer iMac and I was trying to defrag it and then I wiped it. And when I was trying to put back on the operating system and everything, I realized I had wiped everything instead of just the current. I was trying to replace the current operating system, and instead I wiped the whole drive. I was like, "Fuck!" So I've got to take that to this place out here, Micro Center, and get that put back on because I don't even know what I'm supposed to do in this situation. So I've been using my older iMac. This is like a 2005 iMac that I upgraded the hard drive. It's got like a 2 terabyte hard drive in there, and it's still running like something old. Like, which one is it? It's running. What the fuck am I running right now? I want to say Maverick or something. It's like, it's some old version of OX 10, but OS 10, I mean. But it's still doing its thing, which is crazy. I'm just like, man, this is kind of funny. Like, I expected this thing to have been, done a long time ago, but for whatever reason, it's survived, which is awesome. But yeah, I'm using the old what am I trying to say? QuickTime to record podcasts because it's simple. Essentially you just hit record and it records, and I don't have to really do anything except chop it up when the time comes to put it on, in whatever viewer I choose to, or editing software I choose to use. So I don't know. It's been pretty good. It's real simple, real straightforward. I don't have to really think too hard about how to get it to work. And yeah, it keeps things simple. And I'm all about shit being simple because I get so frustrated with some of the overly complicated crap you have to do to keep your, to keep your system running and stuff, Yeah. Okay, but you were talking about your grails. So you said the Define is one. Do you have another one?
Yeah, it would be the killer whale. I always wanted one of those killer whales.
I had one when I was a kid. I had the Night Force version, and our boiler exploded and it melted it. So yeah, I've never been able to get one because every time I see it, it's like $200-$300. I'm like, yeah, nah, I liked it, not that much.
So it was like the atom bomb scene from T2, where it just melted everything.
Yep, pretty much. Oh my god, yeah. It's a good one though. It's definitely a good one. It's a fun toy to have. I remember like having it as a kid was fun because there was so many components and area. It was like a play set, you know what I mean? Like had lots of pieces and parts, and each thing did something different, had a different function. You could put so many dudes in there, man. Like so many dudes. Like it actually felt like a place to carry, like a carrier, like a cool personnel carrier. Yeah, it's a good one. It's another good one. Are all your grails G.I. Joe related?
No, I think might have been another one. I think it was the Figma BlackRock shooter, I think. And I have one in my watch list on eBay. I just haven't pulled the trigger on it yet.
Yeah, sometimes she goes for pretty cheap prices. I have black gold saw because I always thought that was just a weird design. And then I got her for really cheap at Big Fun. I got her for like, I don't know, $30 or something like that. Apparently she's not very popular because on eBay she's cheap too.
Yeah, that was like one of those animes that I guess it was really popular, but then just like disappeared because I didn't know about it until I want to say my freshman year in high school, I like came across and I was like, I loved the art style and like the fights were really cool.
Yeah, it did have cool fights. For me, it was weird because it was the same. Like my favorite anime of all time is Project Echo, and Echo was this weird. Have you seen? You've seen at least seen the trailers for that, haven't you?
Yeah,
Yeah, it is weird. Apparently, it initially it was going to be some kind of hentai, but the company that started it went under, and they sold the rights to another company that turned it into like a sci-fi action thing. But it still had, like, they had already completed a chunk of the story. They never got to the full-on hentai stuff, so it had the weird, like, kind of the they would refer to it as my friend. They refer to her as my friend.
oh
Essentially, the
yeah,
battle is for these two girls are fighting over. Well, one girl is trying to kill another girl because she wants her best friend to be her best friend. That's the story, and
that's
so
why. That's why I was watching and was like, wait, what is going on? Like
that's
the story
exactly how I
doesn't make
was
sense. The
until I saw
fights are
the
cool.
action, and then I was like, I don't even care about the story. The action is nuts. But yeah, I mean, like you can tell, like clearly she's not talking about being friends with this girl. She wants that friend of hers. So Black Rock Shooter kind of had that vibe to it, where it was like, yeah, you're not talking about friendship the way we know friendship to be. You're talking about something else. But the fight scenes were cool. The designs were weird to me, like the weird tiny bodies with ginormous arms and legs and the kind of tiny head. Like it was so weird, but the costumes were pretty cool. It was like semi-modern, and some of them were semi like medieval, but they always had like a slightly modern twist to it. I
Like
really wanted,
there was like one. It was like the tiny girl with the
yeah.
I think the crown, and she had like that big machine or like vehicle that had like saws on it and
Oh,
stuff
I know
like
who you're talking
that.
about. I thought you were talking about Strength or Grip, the chick with the big hands.
Yeah,
You know what I'm
she
talking
was cool too. She had like the like
about? Like robotic hands. Yeah, I dug the designs. Yeah, I saw Black Rock Shooter herself, but she was going for like 3 or 4 times what I paid for Black Gold Saw. So I was like, Gold Saw to me looked cooler, so I only picked her up. Um, but yeah, that's a cool one. If I ever see one, I'm gonna point you in the direction of her. Um, that's one I always come across her from time to time. So yeah, I'll definitely point you in the direction of her when I see her. Bring it to your attention when I see her next.
I think the if there was another one, it would be either a version of the Figma Ghost in the Shell,
Oh, I
because
have one of those. I got
she is like insanely rare to find, or if you find her, she goes for like insane prices.
Well, I think the one I have is this. I think is from Second Gig, where she has like the lavender bodysuit and then the gray sleeves with the short, the shorter hair and the cool boots, and she only comes with like a pistol and a semi-automatic rifle, and then she has like the two different bust sizes. There's like the the boobs pressed together so you can put her arms closer so she can hold her pistol with two hands and support the gun hand. And then there's the like relaxed, bust where she's not, her boobs aren't all pressed together.
Right.
uh, it's a cool figure. Very simple and straight. It's like what Figma does best, man. Like they do really awesome female figures and they don't overdo any of the details or any of the paint. It's exactly what you saw on the screen in 3 dimensions. It's a nice figure. I think I got her from a dude on the same dude that I got my Mafex Amazing Spider-Man 2 figure from. He was selling her for like $40. Every now and then in groups, I see her for 40 or $50. So that's another one. I'll point you in a direction. I'll bring one to your attention when I see her next, because I do come across folks selling her fairly often, which is weird, and not the bootlegs, as far as I know. There are bootlegs of her. I've never heard like if the quality was good on those or not, but I mean I know they're out there. No, but that's a good one.
Because that was
Snap.
another anime that I liked too. Was like
Yeah,
Ghost in the Shell and
it was
stuff
a good
like
one.
that.
It's a
I
good
think
one.
the other two would be the True Hero Sky Shark and the Beast Bomber, but I got those two already.
Oh, cool. Cool. Yeah, man. The core. Holy shit. The core has like. I'm so. It's like in the absence of GI Joe, the core is like, yeah, we're trying to come for the crown. The problem is their releases are so far apart from each other. Like this Time Crisis stuff. I don't even know. Like I've seen the Dino stuff here and there, but I didn't realize it was like a full. I mean, I assumed it was, but it's a full line of that dinosaur themed stuff. And I've only ever seen like a handful of those figures in the store all at once. So maybe the scalpers have finally caught on to the core now. So, fuck
Well, I
that.
haven't seen the any of the Time Crisis stuff.
Yeah,
Like
me
I
neither.
want the plane, like the what is it, like the modified like World War II plane with the machine guns on the front.
Yeah, yeah. Yeah, I haven't seen it either. I've seen posts about it. I've seen people talking about it online. I haven't seen it in person anywhere. Um, just like the Titan tank. I wanted that thing. Excuse me. And then I saw it once when I was buying the Guardians of the Galaxy when they were on sale. The Guardians of the Galaxy Volume 2, and I bought that whole wave. They were like $9 a piece. So I was like, yep, I'm getting every single one of them. And I came back. I tried to put it aside, like hide it somewhere. I came back, man, that shit was long gone. And it's weird because up to that point, the core was always on the shelf. Like always, they were always restocking the core. Like that,
Right.
the set that I've seen pictures of a lot with Smoke, and I think they called it the Griffin. It was called the Raptor the first time they released it. It's like the thing in Avatar, like the jets in Avatar with the giant
Oh yeah,
dual
the
propellers.
what were those called? The Scorpion gunships, I think.
Yeah, it's like that, but this is a little smaller. I've seen it online so many times, like where people were posting about it and talking about it. I remember seeing a picture of it. I put it in my video when I was talking about core vehicles because I didn't know it existed until I started doing research on core the other vehicles that are out there, and I have yet to see that thing in the store. I I don't know. It's like the scalpers, man. They're doing way too good of a job
I haven't
because it's so.
seen, or maybe they just
Huh?
haven't hit yet. Because I
Yeah,
checked my Walmart and all they have is the Jumanji stuff, but usually
yeah, I've
the
seen.
newer stuff hits around November. So
Yeah,
I don't know
oh,
if all that stuff is going to be like Black Friday exclusives or if they're doing another Black Friday exclusive
well, if
like
they
they
do,
did
it'll
with
be.
the
I'll be on top of it. I'm actually off on Black Friday for a change. I don't like going to the store, but I'll put that shit on layaway quick and then come in and get it the next day.
because
I'll
they
do it
had the
quick.
that's when they had the Beast Bomber and the Rainfire, but they only had the Beast Bomber at my store, and that was the green one that I
Yeah,
have. I never found the tan one.
shit. I wanted the green one, and the only one they had was the tan one. I didn't know there was another one. It was when you showed me it. No, actually, it was the UK, the dude in the UK that reviewed it. It was a guy named what was his name? Fitz Ty
Oh,
Tigerius Fitz or
Tichondrous
something like
fits.
that. Yeah, he reviewed it way back, and then the I want to say he reviewed it the Christmas before it dropped in here in the U.S. And the version they got was green, so I assumed that was the color it was going to be. But when I was searching for it around here, I only ever saw it in tan. Then you got it, and I saw yours was green. I was like, oh shit! If it was in green, it would have definitely been my default ship for Fenris Company. But I'm gonna use it. They're gonna use it once, and then I'm gonna make it something else. Because I have some ideas. I'm finally gonna stop sitting on my these ideas because I've been stockpiling like ideas and playing with stuff in Photoshop and creating things out of Legos and out of Bionicle parts and stuff to try and use for my my Fenris Company stuff. And then I just stopped. I just was like, eh. So I'm finally going to get back into doing some Fenris Company stuff and, show some folks on another side. I'm going to get I've got some figures to be some cool, the adversaries for them. And I've got some cool figures to be allies as well. So I'm going to, finally jump back into that and kind of just go full on into the kind of the world of Fenris Company the way I envisioned it, if it was its own toy line separate from G.I. Joe. Because I think my frustration comes from the connection to G.I. Joe. I think once the concept is removed from the world of G.I. Joe, then it becomes more interesting because I'm not restricted.
Right.
When you're working with the Joes, you're kind of restricted. So I want to have maybe one short where, you kind of see the politics between how, Joe fans think that G.I. Joe can't fight, cyborgs and monsters and things like that because, none of that shit exists in the G.I. Joe lore. That's all too far-fetched for G.I. Joe. It's got to be Black Hawk Down or fucking Hurt Locker, even though that's
right.
not what G.I. Joe is. So I want to have Samuels, kind of show up for a briefing like I had in the beginning of Tango, and have him pointing out that there were, sightings of some kind of like alien structure, and he's going to make a dig at the Joes about them being too busy fighting hooded snake people to deal with, the security of the planet. So he's like, you leave it to my boys. Me and my boys will deal with it. Yeah, I'm gonna jump on that finally. I've been itching to do it. I was telling my son the other day because we were playing with like the old Halo 3 figures and stuff.
Right.
And I was like, man, I kind of want to do some G.I. Joe stuff because there's a lot of sequences that I've seen in other stuff that would be perfect for, G.I. Joe or perfect for Fenris Company. I need to do a G.I. Joe short that actually has a team of Joes doing something, and then I want to do full-on Fenris Company stuff. Because I still, even as much as I like watching other people do shorts, I still see so many people who don't get it. They don't get, like, how good a Joe is supposed to be, So
right.
Hopefully I'll be able to do that sooner than later. Hopefully I'll at least be able to get one of these done before Christmas. That's the goal.
So, I'm trying to work on my team members too, and I still have to order the parts for Weaponsmith so that I can have him, team up.
That'll be cool. Yeah, if you need like reference, remember the video, the Joe Collection video where I like kind of break down what their gear is like and stuff and what what parts are what. Some of it's fairly easy with Marauder stuff. I was surprised because ODC was doing the same thing, and some of the gear was like super easy to replicate. I was like, whoa, okay. I didn't even think that it would be as easy as it was because I was using Joe Trooper stuff, But yeah, and those Joe Troopers, holy shit! Like, talk about a figure that no one talks about. That's actually worth the talk. That Joe Trooper is like one of the best figures I think in the Joe line, and it doesn't get the props that it deserves at all. And it was from Retaliation of all things. It wasn't even in the movie. And it's
right.
such a good figure. Oh man.
Yeah, there was a lot of things that Hasbro kind of skipped out on. Like, I know there was supposed to be what was it, a Roadblock figure that was supposed to be in Pursuit of Cobra, and then I think there was supposed to be a City Strike Scarlet or something like that was supposed to be released, but never saw the light of day. I think it was only at one JoeCon, and that was it.
Yeah, they showed the prototype of it a lot at the different conventions, and then there was the It was a 3-pack you were talking about with the Roadblock that had the 3 different head sculpts. He had the Renegade's head sculpt. He had the G.I. Joe Retaliation head sculpt, except his skin was dark. And then he had the the comic book Roadblock head sculpt. And what they ended up doing was making the comic book one in the 2-pack that came with. Remember they made Heavy Duty, and I guess most people, like I did, I took one of my Resolute Roadblock and put his head on that body because the skin tones matched, and it gave me a cool Pursuit of Cobra Roadblock.
Right.
I don't remember if I put that in a video. I think I put that in a video somewhere for one of the update videos or something. I don't know. I'll have to look through and see if I did. If not, I'm going to do another one and then talk about some of that stuff. But yeah, it's strange, man. The way that the G.I. Joe line gets, its attention, and what gets attention and what doesn't get attention, it's just so strange to me. But I guess it's partially the way that the line has been presented to fans. It's been presented as like bits and pieces of everything, so the fans don't really know which things are decidedly G.I. Joe, like what is specifically G.I. Joe and what's not. You know what I mean? So I guess it shouldn't surprise us that there's confusion, when it comes to what Joes do, what they can do, what they can't do, all that stuff. So, but yeah, I've got some things in store.
Yeah, it makes me wish if Hasbro went and like relaunched it, that it would be a little bit more out there.
Yeah, me too. Like I swear, all you have to look at is Metal Gear, and that's the vibe that G.I. Joe needs to have, at least with more coherent storytelling. Because I swear, Hideo Kojima just trips balls and then starts writing, and the shit doesn't make sense, and you find holes all over the place, and character motivations are weird, and it's kind of like ugh. But he comes up with some cool shit though. Amidst all that craziness, there's some cool shit going on in Metal Gear, man.
Because it seems like that's what the core are trying to do. Because the concept art that I sent you, the like the troopers and that big mech, like that big mech took me back to what was that one Metal Gear game? It was
2.
Metal Gear Rising, I think it was. With
Rising. You're right.
With the dude that was like a cyborg, and he had like that like electric katana, where he was just, you could just slice up a helicopter in like 20 pieces.
Yeah, that shit was annoying. You're talking about Raiden, yeah. I love that game. I love the game. The music, I love the fights, man. I still have it. I play it from time to time. That last boss fight with him and Senator Armstrong, and he has the nano machines in his body. Shit is just, the game was on like a different level, man.
That's what I feel like G.I. Joe should have been. Like, because they had the whole nano, machines, but they never really used it to that extreme. Like, they never went all out with it.
Yeah. I don't think they get it. Like I said, the movies need Matthew Vaughn as a director, and maybe as a writer, because the tone that Kingsman has is the tone that G.I. Joe should have, because that's the proper tone for military sci-fi. Craziness. Like they kind of straddle the fence between military sci-fi and then like Cold War era sci-fi, which kind of sucks because it's like, make up your mind. Which is it? Are you stuck in? Are we going to stick with the 80s real American hero, or are we going to ever modernize? It's hard to say because they won't like specify where they're going. Like, what are they planning on doing next? What's going to be the next thing? So I don't know. It's weird, but I'm cool with the core and what they're doing. I kind of wish they would be more. I don't know. Like, I wish that like the artwork matched the tone of the figures. Like some of that artwork that I'm looking at, like I'm looking at it now, it doesn't match the figures. Like the figures look like more cartoony. They don't look very realistic, like serious realistic. They look like the main characters from a cartoon about a paramilitary strike force or something. But the art looks like Metal Gear, like Yoji Shinkawa style artwork that doesn't quite capture what they do. And then there's other stuff like the big posters that say "Play Hard" and stuff, and it's real colorful and whatnot. I'm like, that's what the artwork should be for the core. But you know, they're doing what they do.
Wow, it looks like they had they posted like some little poll on their Facebook thing about what the fans wanted to see. You don't really see that often.
Huh. I missed that.
Like on here, I see robotic enhancements, more clone replication, program soldiers, biohacked figures. Like, that would be
What?
bad. Like, I'd be down for that. You know, like,
Yeah.
you know, using some of those duplicated figures they like to do, kind of put a story behind that. Robotic enhancements, you know, that would be perfect for their whole nano machine thing that they're going with.
Yeah.
Like, if you're telling me that these troopers that they're showing in their concept art, if these are like, you know, the nano machine troopers, I'd be down for that because they look all armored and they look serious.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, I'm gonna have to look into that. I think that's what I'm gonna do when I get off of here, because actually I gotta call it a night. But what I'm going to do though is keep, as we usually do. I'll hit you up on Messenger with random stuff. We'll just continue like we normally do.
Oh, for sure.
But yeah, man, it's been cool. I'm sorry it's taken so long. I mean, Jesus, it's taken forever for us to do this, and we sit down and talk about random shit every day. So like, yeah, we're gonna have to do this again. Hopefully next time I'll get more people involved, and then we'll just, you know, shoot the shit back and forth and focus on. We'll do maybe one topic and get a whole bunch of perspectives on that one topic. Maybe it could be something freeform that has to do with you know, creating characters, or you know, things we would do with the Joe line, or things we would do with our own line similar to G.I. Joe. Like if we were to kind of take the reins,
Right.
I think that'd be fun. Be nice to hear other people's perspective on those things. But yeah, man, it's been fun. I'm glad you had you were able to jump on so we could do this.
Oh, for sure. Yeah. We had a lot of fun, like, geeking out with someone else.
Well, yeah, I guess that is it for us. You guys have been great. Peace outside.